Greetings, family. I am Dr. Nteri Nelson, a metaphysician, clinician, and educator, and co-founder of the Academy of Kemetic Education and Wellness. And I want to let you know, family, that I am so excited about the moment that we are living in. And I trust that you are as excited as well, that your soul has chosen to incarnate at this momentous planetary time of dimensional shifting in consciousness. Today is part 2 of an ongoing series entitled The Astro-Metaphysical Time, Understanding What Time It Is. Today's talk is entitled The Ages That End White Supremacy. Yes, family, the ages that end white supremacy. If you missed part 1, please see the link below so that you may put all the pieces together in this momentous time capsule of that we now live. Each lesson will give a spiritual prescription, a metaphysical prescription. So we begin with the first prescription, which is knowing how to tell time and overcoming the impediment, the loss of not being able to tell time, to know what time it is, which we underwent as a planet in these cycles that have passed and still prevail because of certain impacts that have happened along the way, which I'll get more into. So we have been in this dimensional shift, moving from, we've talked before, that spiritualization in consciousness cycle to have made our deepest descent into this materialization in consciousness cycle. And now we are in this hard, arduous uphill climb of making our re-ascent in a re-spiritualization of consciousness. We have been in moving from that more spiritual into the material. That is an approximately 12,000 year cycle, which we began in the age of Leo, 10,900 BCE. And now we are in this movement, from this materialization cycle back to a re-spiritualization, now also a 12,000 year cycle. And these movements are a part of a great age. That great age is at approximately 25,920 year cycle. And as we begin to look at our astro-metaphysical diagram, we want to understand that the Earth is whirling, our sun is whirling, our galaxy is whirling, everything in the universe is whirling, but we're focusing on our sun, our Earth, our sun, our galaxy. And all three have a relationship with one another. All three are whirling in their spin, and that spin is defining cycles of time. So, what time is it? Well, we have moved from that spiritualization cycle into the material in that first half of the Great Age. That has been a period where prior to moving into that cycle, the pole of our Earth was tipping back toward, or bending back toward, the galactic plane, the galactic center of light and enlightenment. And so the Earth, and in that bending back of the Earth's pole, you see the Earth has a pole that can bend in different directions, and just like We have that pole, which is our spinal column. We are the microverse reflecting the macroverse. And as above, there is below, and so below there is above. So just as we have this spinal column, which is also called the jet pillar, along which our chakras are aligned, the earth too has a pole, a spinal column, a jet pillar. And this bending back toward that spiritual plane. So this is where I want to bring our diagram out again, as we will each time. And I use this diagram. Why do I use this diagram, this paper? Because it's so important for us to be able to manipulate this paper, this diagram, and to see that things are not only moving linearly, but they're moving spherically. And so, unlike doing a graphic or a visual where things are moving in as you're trying to talk, I find that this gives us the most fluidity in the mind to just move and see the movement that is being detailed in today's lesson. You will be able to pause the video and look at this diagram more slowly as you go along. It is in there to be paused and looked upon. And in these lessons, I will be adding more and more to this visual. So we will be filling in this metaphysical map, detailing the constellations, the movements, the ages, etc. But back to where we are now. So understanding this first age, this great age, when that great age begins, we are tipping, and I want to also say here too, in that bending back, right up on top of the diagram, which is also on top of the Great Pyramid of Giza, because our African ancestors were masters in the telling of time. We always are locating from that pyramid in Giza, that we have the Necha Nut, the goddess Nut, and here we see her bending back in that symbolic representation of the spinal column bending back and the earth's pole bending back. And I talk at length about what it means to be bending back and uniting the self in my books, Merkaba, and I'll put links below. But back to our diagram. So in this first great age, half cycle, 12,000 years, which we began in the sign of Leo, 10,900 BCE, we have first, the pole is bending back toward the galactic center of light and enlightenment. And when that pole in that 12,000 years has been bending back, we have been purposed to glimpse the divine architectural design, purpose and plan, and to then go out and build in accord with that divine architectural design, purpose, and plan. Now, in this second part now, where we are now then moving, bending. So then we moved, as we went out, that pole of the earth began to bend away from that galactic center. So we can see there is the bending toward that galactic center of light, and then as we are in that spiritual light, and then there is the bending away from that galactic center as we begin this 12,000-year cycle, which moves us from the spiritual deep into that materialization of consciousness cycle. And when we are in that material, bending into that materialization of consciousness cycle, and Earth's pole is bending away from that galactic center, we are purposed with building a world in accord with that divine will and design that we have been able to glimpse. Now, I qualify the we, which I'll talk more about a little bit later, but also extensively in other sessions, and have talked about extensively in my other work, Secrets of Race and Consciousness, and I will put links below, because I have to qualify the we by saying that, you know, Africans existed and lived in these great cycles of time and experienced this life. As they went out to populate the world about 60,000 years ago, Earth began to witness the unfoldment of these seeming racial types, which I call in my book Semitic and Aryan European. So we are one human family, but it is the unfoldment out of African that we have this Semitic, Aryan European seeming racial type, which is younger, and these newer arrivals and newer in arriving, with Europeans barely experiencing even one great age. So this is about the development of the first eye, which African people possess, because we are millions of years old. So, so we have looked at half the great age. Let's look at the other ages that have happened in this half of this 12,000-year cycle. So in this, again, in this half of the age, we have been bending away from that galactic center into this deepest materialization in consciousness cycle. We have moved away from that center and moved deep into this materialization and consciousness cycle. Now, having done that, let's look at the other ages that have happened in this half of this period, this 12,000-year cycle that we're now rounding the corner of, this 12,000-year cycle of a greater 25,920-year cycle. As we now move toward this re-spiritualization and consciousness cycle and of an age of greater light on our planet. And so where are we right now, now that we have moved to this deepest descent? And again, we're not only just moving linearly, we're moving spherically. We are at this hatch mark here that you can see in the diagram when you pause it on your own. And this hatch mark represents that turning point in these series of ages, the great age, the half of the great age, the beginning of the age of Aquarius, and all signaling the ending of white supremacy. Now, I'll talk more about other ages that are happening as well. But in this, but let's look at what has happened to look at the ages. So the age of re-spiritualization, we have made this deepest descent into the materialization of consciousness cycle. And it is in that deepest descent that in which white supremacy has gripped and dominated and continues to dominate the planet. Particularly as we move through first the age of Aries. Now, when we look back, we see that the age of Aries, approximately 2,260 BCE, we see the beginning invasions of Africa during the age of Aries by these newly appearing seeming racial types that are depicted on the tomb of Ramesses III by 1200 BCE. And so it is moving through the age of Aries, which is a 2,160 year period, to the age of Pisces, which is the next 2,160 year period. And in the middle of that, in the midst of that, we are moving through the Kali Yuga age, or the Iron Age. And in that Iron Age, there is 1,200 years that are bringing us into that deep material, the deepest, darkest point in this cycle, the Dark Ages. And on the other side, that 1,200 years that are just bringing us up on the gradually up on the other side of that deepest descent. And so now we are just beginning the Dwapara age, or Yuga, which is also called the Bronze Age. And that is, as that unfolds, it is a 2,400 year cycle. So you want to see the link below where you may leave your email and learn about upcoming webinars, intensives for deepening these studies, where we'll go in depth and in detail. But just highlighting here in terms of what time it is. So we are just turning the corner, as you can see here. We're just turning the corner here on these ages. And so as we look back on this snapshot in time, we witness we can witness many historical events: the invasions of Kemet, Egypt, the plundering of our libraries, the Alexandrian Library, the closing of our mystery schools, the theft and splintering of our ancient wisdom. And it is the backdrop of these prevailing energies that we are now, upon which we are now putting the pieces back together again. It's always important as metaphysicians to be able to look at the backdrop of energies upon which these external events may be recorded and witnessed, and you can archaeologically discover. They are always upon a energetic backdrop, which is what we're talking about when we look at what's happening astrologically and the energy of the ages. So now we are entering the age of Aquarius, which is a 2,160 year cycle. And in my book, Ka'aba, in the back, I'll put the link below. It lists all the constellations, the astrological signs, their energies, because energy, we want to understand energy may be used in terms of its strengths at its more optimal divine level, its naturological or godly level, or it may be spiraled down and used in a coarse, debased, weakened state of expression. So in my book, you'll see all of these signs. You'll see the planets that rule each sign. You'll see the nature associated with each sign and the energies that are involved here. But just moving here, so the Age of Aquarius, we are looking now, we're shifting now from having been, we're now at the cusp now of moving from the Piscean into the Aquarian age. We're just turning the corner now in moving into the Aquarian age. And the Age of Aries, which I talked about a moment ago, is one of the ages that we have come through. And the Age of Aries on a lower, the energy on the lower turn of the spiral, Aries energy ruled by the planet Mars, is about conquest. It's about aggression. It's about warring. It's about domination. It's ruled by the nature Herakuti. And so this lower spiral Aries energy, Aries has a higher spiral, but I'm talking about the lower spiral now, as it moved to dominate and invade Africa, and thus the impacts that we have been talking about that have caused us the firm footing of this white supremacist paradigm. Now, let's look at the energies of Pisces, where we have come from. The Piscean energy, you know, on a higher spiral is about faith. It's about you know, belief. It is, but on a lower spiral, it can be and is about religiosity and fanatical and blind submission to religious dogma, authority, and turning to powers outside of the self. And the key word for Pisces is I believe. But when we move to now the Aquarian age, this is when we are really coming into the energies that are administering our spiritual prescription, our metaphysical, our second metaphysical prescription, which is accessing the energy that is empowering us once again to know our history. We are overcoming the impediment of not knowing our history, not knowing our way back home, and not taking responsibility for knowing. We are overcoming this impediment and being spooked up about things African, about the spiritual practices that our African ancestors, the spiritual wisdom that we were told to put away and put aside as we adopted these religious practices and dogmas. So in the Aquarian age, the energy, just briefly, again, there's more in my book on detail, but in the Aquarian age, it is about innovation, inventiveness, information, knowledge. And the key word in Aquarius is I know, enabling us to factually know what time it is, verified through historical earthly events. So family, these are the prevailing energies that these lessons will be detailing and awakening awareness in, that are here and been with us, that form the backdrop of the historical events that have been unfolding in time. So we will refer to, again, this astro-metaphysical cosmogram as we go through this lecture series. This Aquarian energy moves us beyond religiosity, where we can now more fully study and know the African origins of the ancient wisdom and application during these troubled times. Family, I have talked about how that shade has gone down as we have gone into this materialization cycle in consciousness. And now the shade is starting to rise as we are at this dawn, this new dawn. And the Earth's vibration, and we're being bathed with those incoming energies from the galactic plane, from the galactic center of light, that in enlightenment. And the vibration is rising. We are called to raise the vibration as the vibration of Earth is rising. And the backdrop upon these energy shifts, these two shifts, you know, the having moved through those course ages that I talked about with the invasions and the domination of dogma and religiosity, having moved from those ages now to this turning point, this hatch mark, this vertex in the V. We are now in this turning process and re-spiritualization toward the light and enlightenment. And we are, so in this turning point, we are now stirred out of our fall into the material dense consciousness where particulate, as I talk about in my books, Secreted Race and Consciousness, where particulate or separative consciousness and duality in consciousness have prevailed. And we are in the process now of hitting the refresh button on Earth's, on Earth after our page had become frozen in material density, where we became devitalized of light, and that what has been built has now grown brittle, and we suffer a loss of memory of this divine plan, the divine architectural, archetypal design purpose and plan. So we are now falling out of this material consciousness. We are now learning to move interiorly, in wholeness, in that first eye activation, versus being collapsed in a separative consciousness, absent this refreshing light on how to put the pieces back together again in the cohering power of love. We, just like on our computers, if our page has gotten stuck, we hit that refresh button that we may renew. We are at that time of residual night, darkness, just before dawn, and the Earth's pole is reversing itself like windshield wipers, you know, swiping in one direction toward that plane, that galactic, that Milky Way galaxy, that center of enlightenment, where we glimpse the divine design, back the other way, where we go through that gateway where man and woman are tasked to build a world in accord with what they have glimpsed, what they have seen. And because they have been drenched in that solar and galactic light and are remembering that divine design, will, purpose, and plan. And in their outgoing rehearsal in building that in accord with that divine design, purpose, and plan, they are successively approximating that design more in that next cycle of going out to build a world. Again, I will be talking more about how what experience the seeming racial types, African, Semitic, Aryan, European, have had in immersing in this light. And today you are seeing and learning how to use these prevailing energies to get the job done of dismantling white supremacy in these times. And the spiritual prescription for knowing what time it is and knowing our history will be are administered today and will continue to be administered as we go through these lessons. This is again, family, a momentous time in our planetary history where we are making this shift out of that material consciousness which birthed in its deepest descent this white supremacist paradigm. And today's lesson has detailed the energies we are accessing now in moving out of and beyond that encapsulation of our consciousness in this prior cycle as we move into the expanse of these incoming energies from the galactic center, from the constellation of Aquarius, and from the Dwapara age that we now are moving into. I wish you calmness and steadfastness in fulfilling your life work and service, and really the work of putting your shoulder, your full force in this turning point as wise and skilled and knowledgeable metaphysicians who know what time it is, know what the prevailing access of two energies are, and are cooperate and are glimpsing more what is divinely intended. And seeing this white supremacist paradigm as fully growing brittle and crumbling and active in our work of dismantling and carting away, so that we may be as one human family in the Aquarian age and in universal consciousness. Part 3. Please join me for part 3. I thank you for your time and attention to this lesson today and being fully present. Onk Uja Semen.